I fully believe the Lakers are capable, right? I do think they should make a move or two this offseason. If they could get D'Lo to opt in and then package him for his own sanity, if he want, what I would love is if he said he had one of his best years ever as a pro in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn's obviously rebuilding. I think it's very clear in Brooklyn that Mikal Bridges is not really the number one guy. So I say ship those 3 first round picks and see if they want D'Lo. Maybe throw in Vando or Rui if you have to, and see if you can get Mikal Bridges. I mean, they're not going to be the only team that wants him, but he would be a perfect complement to LeBron and AD because he plays great perimeter defense. He's incredibly durable and he can shoot. And that's exactly what they need. And then they would still have Austin to be able to handle the ball. They would still have Gabe Vincent coming back because he has a 3-year deal, unless they were to trade him in that deal, which is possible. Or bring back Spencer, but Spencer would probably have to come back on a minimum. But if he wants to prove that this year was kind of an aberration and he wants to prove that he's worth something, that would be a great signing to get Spencer on a minimum type deal to be a backup guard. And then obviously you have LeBron that can still handle the ball. Austin's more than capable of running the offense, no matter what offense it ends up being with whatever coach they do. Although I'm sure it'll be in a semblance of pick and roll with LeBron and AD, and similar to what you've seen with shooters around them, because that's what works with LeBron and AD in that offense. So I think that's something that they should seriously take a look at. I would definitely be like, hey, if Mikal Bridges is available, if they really want to go with a guard, I do think that DeJounte Murray's not a bad option. I don't know that he's proven himself on a level way beyond D'Lo, although he's a better defender and certainly he's a good player, to the point where now the Hawks are thinking about maybe getting rid of Trae Young and keeping him. There's been a lot of talk about Trae Young in the Lakers. I don't think that's an option at all because the defensive liability with him and Austin in your backcourt would be huge unless you trade Austin in the deal and get another really good guard. But if you trade 3 first round picks and say like Austin and Rui for Trae Young or D'Lo or whoever it is, you're going to lose role players and get another guy that can't defend. Yes, Trae can shoot and probably make wide open shots on a more consistent basis than maybe even D'Lo. But when D'Lo gets hot, he's hot, right? So like it's not that simple. Like it's not that easy of a swap. And D'Lo can still pick. D'Lo takes a lot of flack for his individual one-on-one defense, but he's a good team defender in passing lanes and getting steals and deflections and stuff like that when he's really in that mode mindset. Which it does come and go a little bit with D'Lo. So you wonder, is he checked in all the time on that? And it seems like he doesn't really want to have to focus on that as much. But to be a winning player on a winning team, and especially a LeBron team, that I think it's for all intents and purposes, whether D'Lo opts in or he doesn't, I think it's best for D'Lo to go somewhere else. I don't want that as a Laker fan. We drafted D'Lo. I like D'Lo a lot. I wish that there was a way that we could work with him to make him the sixth man off the bench that could score or something like that. But I don't think that's going to go over with him, and I think he's going to want to go somewhere else if that's the case. Or they could work out a sign and trade, and for Paul George or something. If Paul George goes, hey, I'm tired of Kawhi being injured, James Harden ain't really helping, and the Clippers go, okay, it's time to rebuild. Getting a guy like D'Lo and 3 first round picks, for Paul George, who's an aging star, but he would be a complimentary guy because he can shoot and defend with LeBron and AD. That would be interesting. I think there's a lot of different things that the Lakers could look at. It depends on what's available and what teams want to do what with what players, right? 3 first round picks is nothing to snuff at, especially because they're going to be picks that are in the future. Knowing the Lakers, though, they'll probably say we're not going to trade all 3. We might trade 1 or 2, but we probably won't trade all 3 unless they can get, say, Donovan Mitchell from Cleveland or something like that. If they get Donovan Mitchell with LeBron and AD, like that, they're right there with anybody. They are right there with anybody, and it almost doesn't even matter who the role players are going to be. Although they have team options, I think Wood and Prince both have team or player options to opt back in for another deal similar to what they made last year. Although the Lakers certainly could look at trading them if they're trying to clear cap space. LeBron's a free agent, so that clears cap space. And then if D'Lo opts out, then that basically forces the Lakers to work with D'Lo on going, hey, is there a team you want to go to that we can help facilitate that to, where you sign a deal with them, but we get something in return, whether it's just a role player or a pick or whatever it is, to try to facilitate that for you. So they really need to work with him. And you saw that in the end of the Denver series where they could have benched him in the last game or two, and they didn't. And that's because they know that if he just opts out and leaves for nothing, that kind of is not a good thing for them. And so, whether he wants to stay or not, they're going to have to figure that out. I don't think D'Lo ultimately is on the team when they start training camp next year. I think for his own sanity, he probably doesn't want to have to deal with this crap again year after year by being the scapegoated player for the Lakers every single time. And granted, I understand he had a game where he, didn't have a point and all. I mean, there's justification to it. But I do think that Darvin was more at fault than D'Lo was. I think that there's a lot of issues that the media doesn't talk about that Darvin actually contributed to and made happen, that didn't need to happen if he would have just done a better job earlier in the season of managing the players he had under the salaries he had and the stars he had for the amount of playing time they should have. Um, you can't just ignore guys making a bunch of money that are having a couple bad games just because you want to try some bench guys out and play like an all forward lineup. They also then he would go to the extreme and play all guards, which didn't really work well. Although once they got Spencer D'Lo worked well because they played together before in Brooklyn and they would start vibing. So Spencer D'Lo and Austin was actually one of the three guard lineups that would work well with LeBron and AD. Statistically, but a lot of the other ones wouldn't work at all. Gabe Vincent, for whatever reason, just cannot find a shooting stroke because he's been out and it takes time. So maybe by training camp next year, if he can become any semblance of the guy that was in Miami last year, after he gets a little bit more time to condition and recover from that knee injury, then who knows what can happen. Christian Wood have been a nice big to have. He's not an amazing defender or anything, but he would have really helped on the glass against Denver. He would have helped at least kind of neutralize the Aaron Gordon rebounding and Michael Porter Jr. rebounding. But the Lakers are going to need to do something with their roster, I think. And I think that they understand that and they know that, for LeBron to resign, he's going to go, hey, I want to see a move. If it's one pick or two picks or whatever it is, and packaging either D'Lo or if we have to get rid of probably Rui or Vando in the process, or maybe even Austin in an extreme. If there's a player like Donovan Mitchell available, they will. I think they'll unload the assets. If it's not Donovan Mitchell and it's somebody like Dejounte Murray, then I think that they aren't going to be as willing to unload the assets. They might go, okay, we'll get one asset and a pick, and a couple second rounders or another bench guy or something, but we're not going to unload our entire asset gun because then we're going to be in the same position as teams like the Clippers and the Suns where we don't have any more assets and we're completely tapped out. And then LeBron's going to upend them and retire within a few years, right? We all assume. LeBron is showing some signs of age as far as just his stamina and stuff in the postseason. We could see it as where that never seemed to be a problem in years past. So I think but that's, of course, he's 39, right? But he still is a really good player. And if they can get another supporting guy to help him get a little bit more rest, I think he can still be just as productive as ever. He just has to pick his spots more, which is the same thing that any player that gets older is going to have to do, right? You still have the skills and attributes, but you're going to just have to pick your spots a little bit better. As far as the coaches go, though, Phil Handy, obviously, the whole Lakers staff was let go, but that doesn't mean that they can't be potentially brought back. That just means Darvin's staff, as constructed, is not coming back the way it was constructed. I think Phil Handy's a guy they're going to look at. I think it could end up being Phil Handy under the right circumstances. I think if they don't get the right guy that they want, they'd rather have Phil Handy than somebody necessarily new. Or they could end up doing Phil Handy with guys like Rondo and Redick on the bench as assistants. But would Redick leave everything he has going on in the media to just be an assistant coach? I don't know. Maybe if it gets his foot in the door and he understands that then when LeBron leaves, maybe he could become the guy with the Lakers, once that time is up and maybe get the head coaching. The Redick thing at the beginning, I was like, well, he's never really been a head coach and all that. But, I mean, he does have so much playing experience and he obviously knows his X's and O's, not just from the podcast, but just from being the type of shooting guard he was. Obviously, his entire career was predicated on pick and rolls and dynamic ways to get open as a player who didn't have the best athleticism and wasn't the best shooter in the league. He's a good shooter. He's a really good shooter all time, but he's not one of the best shooters like all time, like a Steph Curry or something like that, right? So he had to get predicated open on plays predicated to run to get people open. So he understands that from a very long-term perspective. He obviously played for Coach K. I mean, he understands basketball at a high level. I don't doubt that he does. Is he going to be good enough at the relationship part of that? It seems like he would be, but certainly it seems like when he gets frustrated at times, even on TV and stuff, that he can get a little defensive, much the way that Darvin did. But, I'm actually okay with JJ at the beginning. I was like, I don't know if that would be the right guy, but I actually think that there's a lot worse options you could go with. I would rather see JJ than, like Frank Vogel back, which has been one of the things people, oh, well, what if we got Vogel back? Why would you do that? You just got rid of Vogel. Why would you just get him back? Vogel wasn't the first choice anyway. They ended up winning that championship in 2020, but they wanted Ty Lue and for Vogel to be on the staff to help with the defense. And then they couldn't work out a deal with Ty Lue. He goes to the Clippers the next year, and Vogel ends up winning the title in the bubble because of circumstances where all his guys got a bunch of rest before the bubble started. So you had a veteran team with Rondo, and then they had the extra guys to guard Jokic. See, they had JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard on that team, so it helped to free up AD to be AD and hit those like game-winning shots. So he wasn't on Jokic as much. And granted, Rui took a lot of the Jokic bulk the last two series, these last 2 years. But as you can see, there's a pretty big difference between a defensive player of the year, multiple time guy like Dwight Howard guarding him, and a guy like Rui who is doing his best to try, but it's also affecting Rui's offense where he's so tired and his legs are so done from trying to push his bigger guy away from the basket the whole game that he can't get anything underneath his shots. And the few shots he did have, which were not nearly enough, and was another problem with Darvin. How do you not get Rui some shots? I mean, he's proven in the playoffs 2 years that when you can get him wide open looks, he can go there. But because of his assignment in Jokic, his legs are probably gone, and that affects your shot. And then you short arm it, or whatever. So it's a real thing. So I think the Lakers have a lot of good options. Bud, like I said, they should interview Kenny Atkinson. I'm not as big on. I like Kenny Atkinson as a guy, but I don't know that he's a lot like Darvin, and he's a motivation rah rah type of guy. He does know his X and O's, but I don't think he's going to be the right coach for the Lakers. I just don't see that. I would much rather see Phil Handy than Kenny Atkinson. I'd rather see Handy get the opportunity or Reddick get the opportunity over somebody like that. That's probably clearly going to be too Darvinish for this team. Rah rah and all that is good, but you have two all time, top 75 already players, and one of them is probably a top, five player at least, if not two or one, right? Depending on what you think of LeBron and where he ranks all time and all that. AD's probably, he was in the top 75, but the truth is he's probably top 50 at least at this point. If he wins another title, he might, get higher than that. And if he continues, once LeBron retires to carry the Lakers, he could go even higher. So it just really depends on how that all plays out. I loved what I saw from AD this season after kind of being a little flaky after they won that championship the last couple of years. It felt like he was kind of taking, rest on his laurels a little bit the last couple of years. Even though he would have his times where he would step up, he would also have times where he wouldn't. And it was kind of frustrating. I think even to LeBron this year, I felt like AD finally took that step and said, okay, like I'm going to take this over, and I'm going to be that guy on offense and defense and whatever we need. And he gave it everything he had, and you can't blame him for it, right? Um, the Lakers have a lot of opportunity. I'm sure there's other guys that are going to become available as the postseason winds out, and certain coaches either get terminated or decide to mutually part ways, which is really getting terminated in a nicer way. Who knows who's actually going to be available? Are the Knicks going to keep Tibbs if they feel like they don't compete against, the next round? Would that be something that maybe could become available? Tibbs is a pretty hard coach that works his guys real hard. Would that be too much for the Lakers? I don't think Ty Lue's going to become available. Even if the Clippers decided Ty Lue's not the right guy, I still don't think they'll let him go because he has a year left on his deal and they don't want to give him to the Lakers because they know what that would do. If the Lakers had Ty Lue next year, I firmly believe that they are a top four contender, even if they didn't change the roster that much. And if they do change it and get any improvements, they could be better than that and title potentially, or at least be right there. Um, we're seeing the emergence right now of Minnesota and Ant Edwards and what he's becoming. And he still has not revving on all cylinders yet the whole game, but you can see he's slowly figuring it out. And Denver had a lot of vulnerabilities, and the Lakers were leading a vast majority of that series. And I guarantee you, when Chris Finch sat down to game plan for these games at Denver, he's going, the Lakers pretty much had the right formula. They just didn't finish. So we just have to really make sure that we can kind of do that, and we can do it better because we have two big guys to throw at Jokic, and we have one of the best defensive players in the year, and we can throw Cat on Jokic and kind of at least play him even. And then we can throw Rudy Gobert on guys like Aaron Gordon or Michael Porter Jr. and get a lot more length on those guys than the Lakers could. More like when the Lakers did have Dwight and JaVale, where they could actually do that. And that's when they beat Denver, is in 2020 in the playoffs on their way to a championship, right? And I think that Minnesota could absolutely do that. I don't think Boston's unbeatable in the East. I think Boston could lose before they even. I don't think Boston's nearly as unbeatable as people think. I think they showed it in that game they lost to Miami, where they kind of weren't really taking it seriously. And if Boston's not hitting threes, they're not that great. I'm just being honest with you. I love their team. I love the pieces they put together, but they're a very top heavy team like Denver, where their first like six guys are really good, and after that, it's like, so you're really only ever one injury away from not really being that good because you're only going to be able to play five guys so long. You got to play other guys in the game, and those vital minutes are what makes the difference in a playoff game. That's just what it is. You need those extra guys to be able to hold their own when your starters go out for any extended period of time. Even if you're playing a short rotation, that has to happen. And Denver has that depth with a bunch of guys like Kyle Anderson and McDaniels they can go to. By the way, McDaniels was drafted by the Lakers. Doesn't that suck to look at that? Now, for a guy, we traded him for a guy in Schroeder that we don't have anyway. So we could have had McDaniels. Imagine if we had McDaniels in that series against Denver with the Lakers with the same exact team otherwise, minus Gabe Vincent, assuming that, right, that was the Schroeder spot. So imagine if we'd had McDaniels, how that series would have played out, where you could have stuck McDaniels over there on Porter, and you wouldn't have had to worry about as many of those threes going in. The Lakers probably are right there playing even, if not winning the series at that point, right? So it's very frustrating to see all that stuff. But I hope the Lakers just get a coach that understands the parts and pieces and plays to the strengths of the team. When they play bigger, they tend to win. When they play all guards, they tend to lose. And that's just really what it is from a statistical analytical standpoint, right? That when they bully teams, they are good because it's hard to stop. You wear them down, and then LeBron and AD can. Once you get worn down against LeBron and AD, they're going to pick and roll you, and you're either getting a lob at the basket or you're not going to stop LeBron moving to the basket. We all know that. And as he gets older, that's probably not going to change because you guys can block his shot a little bit easier now because he's not getting quite the same lift, but he can still get there with anybody. The layups he makes, and when he gets near the basket, he's damn near unstoppable. And if you do double him or anything like that, AD's behind him and he just throws it up and you get a lob dunk. So you can't really. That's a problem for anybody, and it will continue to be a problem as long as they have those two guys on the roster. Um, so but if they can get another threat on the outside, on the perimeter, like I said, like a Bridges, or if they can find a way to get their hands on a guy like Donovan Mitchell, I really don't like Trae Young because that's going to create such a defensive problem for them that I just don't think it's worth. The juice is not worth the squeeze of the role players and picks and depleting your assets. Because if you get Trae Young and it doesn't work out, and by the trade deadline it doesn't work out, you just traded 3 first-round picks and role players probably, and then you're going to be one of these really top-heavy teams that only has like 6 guys that can play, if that, right? And then you're stuck with starting a guy like Torian Prince again or a guy like Cam Reddish again, right? I really think the Lakers should look at trying to work with D'Lo in any way they can and packaging 1 or 2 of those picks and trying to find something that works and trying to keep the D'Lo, Rui, Vando thing together. If Wood opts back in, great. You have another backup big that could be healthier next year. Obviously Vincent, but they might end up packaging some of those guys in the deal to help match salaries or something. So I would, if I had to give up a guy, I'd give up Vincent right now. But the problem is another team might not want him. But if you need to match a salary, they might have incentive to throw him in. But then the Lakers might have to throw in another second round pick or something to compensate that team for taking that salary, since Gabe was pretty much a liability for his contract, which is somewhere around $8 to $10 million, I'm sure next year. So, and he has another year after that. It was a 3-year deal he signed originally with the team for almost a full mid level. So. Um, I think the Lakers have a lot of options, which is great. Having options is a good thing, right? And LeBron opting out, and if D'Lo does opt out, then maybe that can create some opportunity to be able to sign another mid-level guy or something, because then you have LeBron's contract off the books and D'Lo's contract off the books, and then you have AD, who does have a substantial deal, and some of the other guys, which is Rui, Austin, Bando, are all making, I don't know, somewhere between $10 to $13 million a year now or something like that, which is kicked in, and they all have about 3 to 4 years on their deals. So, Lakers have options, but they have to be creative with it. And if they're going to give up role players in any of these deals between those main 3, between Vando, Rui, and Austin, you could probably get away with giving up one of those guys, but I would not give up more than one, because then your depth is going to really suffer. If you can get away with trading D'Lo and Gabe and picks, if you can get away with that and keep those 3 guys, then you're going to be in really good shape from a depth standpoint, and you're going to keep a lot of continuity together. Even though it might be a new offense, it's going to be the same basic principles no matter what offense you run with these guys. You're going to run pick and roll, and you're going to run downhill and have shooters spaced out with LeBron and AD. If you're running anything else with those guys, I don't know what it would be, but it's probably not going to work. So, no basic, yes, you want to score in transition and get the ball out quick and all that, but the Lakers' main problem is going to be perimeter defense. Darvin's philosophy all year of just leaving some guy wide open on the other team. Look, I understand the philosophy, but this is the NBA. You cannot leave NBA players wide open from 3. I don't care how good of a shooting percent. You want to see a guy get out of a slump and start shooting better, leave him wide open. And I don't mean wide open like he's a little open and he shoots. The Lakers will literally leave a guy wide open and no one will even run near him. Nobody will be within 20 feet of him and no one will even try to get to him. Like it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen because you're sitting here going, these guys play in the NBA. Like they can hit a wide open shot. Like it's, like anybody can do that. Yeah, maybe the first time it'll mess with their head a little bit and psych them out, but eventually they're going to figure it out. You have to at least run and try to close out because it at least puts the thought in the guy's head, and then that could potentially force the missed shot or an adjustment that causes the ball not to go in some way, right? You have to at least make an effort to close out. Even if you don't get all the way there, you have to try to close out because that in and of itself is going to help you. You can't only guard four guys on the floor. Like that's not going to work. These guys are starters in the NBA, right? Like they can make shots. So that's a really bad philosophy that needs to go away immediately. And that's another Darvin Ham-esque defensive prowess thing where he goes, "Oh well, that's the worst guy on the team, so we're just going to live with that." How did you not learn from the fact that Grizzlies did that to Rui in the final or in the division series last year, and you guys took advantage of it to win, right? Like, don't you realize how bad of a strategy that is when you're the ones that took advantage of that same strategy to win a series? Like, why would you do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, unless the guy's like Ben Wallace esque shooter, I would never do that. Like Jokic, you kind of tempt to do it a little bit, where you step away from him and go, oh, because he's such a certainty from inside the key and anywhere from free throw line in that you'd rather take a chance on a three. But even Jokic is a good enough shooter to get hot from outside if you keep leaving him, and he can make contested threes over anybody. So AD, anybody. By the way, AD not being in the top three for defensive player of the year is a joke. I don't know what deal with the NBA is. If you took AD off the Lakers, they would give up 150 points a game, easy, like easy. Like not even like he is their defense. Without him, they don't have a defense. And, they can block a couple shots here and there, but without AD, there's no anchor, and there is a lot of lane stuff going on. And every time he goes out of the game, it's a layup line. So I don't know what you're thinking about where you don't think that AD is one of the top defensive player of the year guys. And Rudy has so much defensive help on his team with McDaniels and Cat and Ant and all this. I don't know how you don't consider that when you're going for defensive player of the year. AD's out there by himself pretty much half the time, not getting any help rebounding, not getting any help with block shots. Every once in a while, you'll get a block shot from LeBron or Reddish or Torian or somebody like that, but it's few and far between. Like AD is their defense. Rudy is not the entire defense of Minnesota, right? He's an important part of it, but he's not doing as much work on defense as AD. I don't believe that for a minute. That's a crazy, crazy thing. It's almost an anti-Laker bias where they go, well, they're the Lakers, and AD's going to be in the top 10 for MVP, and it's like, no, don't overthink this. Like AD probably was defensive player of the year. I'm just going to tell you, I watched all the games, and I'm telling you right now, like AD was a better defensive player than Rudy Gobert this year. I'm just telling you. I mean, you can believe that or not believe it. You think because I have a Lakers background that is biased, it's not. AD was defensive player of the year this year. I'm just telling you. It's just a fact. It just is. So, I think people overanalyze numbers sometimes and want to, look at that a little too. Without AD, they don't win. They probably don't win more than 20 games. On defense. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than that. As where Minnesota, if you took Gobert out of the lineup, you still have Cat and you still have Nas Reed, and I mean, they would probably be very similar in record. Maybe they would lose a few more games, but I mean, it doesn't change the dynamic of their team that much. A little bit less shot blocking and a little bit less rebounding without Rudy out there, and that's it. Because he didn't really do anything on offense. And on defense, he's not a complete game changer. He helps, but he's not a complete, in and of himself, game changer the way that Anthony Davis is a complete game changer for the Lakers on defense. Complete game changer. So he changes games all the time on defense. When he locks in on defense, the other team is probably not going to win. That's really the gist of it, unless he has to do something like guard Jokic most of the time and have a coach that's not helping him in any way with getting him timeouts to rest or challenging any plays or running rotations that make sense so he doesn't have to cover everybody constantly all the time. And so, whatever the case may be, the Lakers have a lot of good coaching options and a lot of good assets in their pocket right now, which is a good spot to be in. It's not all is lost. They can make a couple adjustments and be right there next year. So if they hire the right coach and or at least somebody that's relatively competent to game management situations and rotation, availability that makes sense based on the assets you have and the allotment of time you're giving those assets based on that. I think that they'll be really good. Play your most talented guys. Yes, sometimes they're going to go into a slump, and you're going to have to play through that. But that's going to establish confidence that you can use later in the season. And I understand, but even it would be one thing if he put Torian in the starting lineup for Austin or D'Lo and Cam in the starting lineup for Austin or D'Lo, and they started winning games, right? But you didn't win games from doing that, and then you stuck with it and stuck with it. Like we can all understand for a game or two, you're like, okay, let's try this out at the beginning of the year. But you just won the in-season tournament doing the exact opposite. It doesn't make any sense, right? From a long-term perspective, you went against your own. Like Darvin this year in his coaching decisions, his rotations went against all logic that he established last year's coach and coming into this year when they won the in-season tournament. Like he literally, like they started losing a few games after that, and he immediately switched everything, and then they lost more because he made worse moves because it was a panic decision, right? That's what you don't want. And they need a more steady-handed coach that's going to go, hey, listen, I understand that my job's going to be on the line because I'm the Lakers coach, and if we don't win, it is what it is. But I'm also going to give my best players the benefit of the doubt and establish confidence in my superstars that when things don't go right, I'm not going to panic. And I'm not going to not be accountable myself for my own decisions, right? So that's all it is. It's not about always making the right decision. It's about being accountable to what you do and then what you do next that matters, right? So that's really what the Lakers need at coach. If that's JJ Redick or Phil Handy or, I really don't think Mike Budenholzer, even though he's the only coach out there probably that has a ring right now that's like established and recently coaching, I really don't think he's a good fit because him and Darvin have very similar philosophies, and they were fired for very similar reasons with pretty similar teams. And I just don't think that Mike Budenholzer's the right guy. So I would rather see a fresh face like Phil Handy get a shot, or JJ Redick get a shot, or Rajon Rondo get a shot, because they're very smart guys that understand game management. And but we'll see. I mean, I'd rather see that, or obviously if Ty Lue becomes available, or maybe somebody else will become available that you don't know about right now. Maybe if the Mavs go out in the next round, maybe Jason Kidd becomes available. He's a guy that obviously was on the Lakers coaching staff in 2020 when they won the title, and is a guy that LeBron and AD respect. That could be definitely a move that they could make. But I think the Mavs want Jason Kidd there long term, which is why they got rid of another guy they had long term in Rick Carlisle, who's now killing it with the Pacers and just eliminated the Bucks. So, granted, the Bucks were injured, and that's probably why that happened. But I mean, who knows? We don't know because Giannis and Dame didn't play, and they weren't playing real great before that. So maybe the Pacers could have still won that. Who knows? Um, I would love to see the Lakers call the Pacers and say, "Hey, what if we were to give you, D'Lo, who you could package to somebody else, and a couple picks, and give us Miles Turner and a shooter or something?" I don't know. I mean, I know they had talked about a couple years ago potentially trading for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, and then they gave Buddy Hield away for basically nothing at the deadline to the 76ers, and Buddy Hield's play made it look like it should have been for nothing after he got to the 76ers. So, um, Sixers are a whole other interesting problem in the NBA. That they've got an interesting offseason ahead too, and they have a bunch of cap space, but they had a very weird season with some very weird things going on. So I don't know, analyzing that too. But Lakers are obviously in a spot where there's a lot of different dynamic ways that they can go. I just hope Rob Pelinka picks a good direction, because if he doesn't and they go through this again, it might be the end of him being there. You got Bob Myers out there doing a great job on TV right now, and I guarantee you that if the Lakers were going to make a move, that's the kind of splashy name they would be looking for. Somebody that has a track record of success, who's a younger guy, who has a lot of appeal and flash to him, and that's Bob Myers. So if Pelinka does not figure this out this offseason, you could be seeing a Bob Myers move in the near future, unless he ends up going to some other situation in the meantime, which I'm sure there will be teams that will try, because they will be like, hey, we're done with this situation, and what are you doing, Bob? Like, why don't you come over here and help us out, right? I could see him potentially doing that if there's a good situation for him to go to. Um, you know, I don't know if Philly would move on from Morey, but that would be a situation that Bob could look at. You've got Joel Embiid there, and you've got Maxi emerging, kind of at the beginning of something there. So if they can supplement that roster and get some pieces, maybe they can make something happen. And the East is gettable. The East is gettable. I hear people go, "Oh, I don't know about if the Bucks can compete next year." Well, they can, just because they have Giannis, Dame, and Chris Middleton, and even if they don't have any other assets outside of that, Portis has been playing pretty good, and they're in the East. So it's basically Boston and them, and the Philly shows up that year or whatever. I mean, it's the Knicks are emerging, but the Knicks are still not quite there yet. Are they going to keep Julius Randle? Are they going to make a different move to do something different? They're going to need another big guy probably to really make another push to the finals. But we'll see. Maybe they'll surprise us this year and grind it out. They're trying to with that three guard Villanova thing they've got going on with DiVincenzo, Hart, and Brunson. So we're going to see what happens. I like what the Knicks are doing though, but that's only because it's in the East. I mean, if the Knicks were in the West, they probably would have been out in the first round. Just the truth. So it's nice to be in the East right now for sure because you have a lot more options. The Miami Heat are still going to be right there because they're in the East. If the Heat can make one or two moves to supplement their roster and get a little bit more help, they're going to be right there, and they're going to be right there even if they don't do that because that's just who they are, right? So we'll see. If I was the Lakers, I might call the Clippers about Ty Lue just to see. I might call the Heat about Eric Spoelstra just to see because if they do want to blow up that team and get rid of Jimmy and go with a Bam hero thing moving forward, then does Spoelstra want to be there long term for that? I mean, he probably does. He probably does. He probably does. But it might be worth a phone call. Call Pat Riley, an old friend, and say, hey, you might be retiring soon, and that you guys might rebuild, and is Spoelstra going to be part of that rebuild, or what's going on? It's worth a conversation. You never know. So call Mickey Harrison, the owner. Hey, what's going on there? So I don't know. If I was Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, I'd probably at least try. I'd just find out the facts. That's all you got. Just find out the facts. That's all you want to do. Find out the facts. Oh, okay. You guys aren't doing any of that, and you're just going to keep going the way. Okay, cool. No problem. No harm, no foul. Right. So we'll see what they do. I'm interested because there's a lot of interesting things that could happen. Lakers, but I'm glad they have some assets, and I think they played well enough this year to where any player that's in the league looking for a change is going to go. That could be interesting. Obviously coaches are always on the hot seat with the Lakers. People go, well, why would you want to go there if you can only have 2 years and then you're going to get fired? Well, that's always really been the case with the Lakers outside of Phil Jackson and Pat Riley, which, hey, if you get a guy that ends up being Phil Jackson and Pat Riley, he probably will stick around for a while. But you have to win when you're with the Lakers. That's why it's so dumb to me when people say stuff like, oh, well, Darvin had a winning record in the regular season. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, you're playing for the Lakers, dude. You're not. This isn't Charlotte. Like, that's not good enough. Like, that is not good enough. The Lakers, you win. You win, especially when you have two superstars and no reason not to at least be in the dance at the end of the season. You really shouldn't have been the seventh seed, and they got lucky to even get to that based on the last couple days of the season and lining up with the Pelicans. If they had lined up with Sacramento, they would have been in trouble in the play-in tournament. Maybe even the Warriors, because the Warriors have been playing them really tough the last couple times they played. The Lakers kind of handled them early in the season, and then at the end, the Warriors kind of had their number. So they got really lucky that they avoided both the Warriors and the Kings. The Kings absolutely have the Lakers number. It's like not even a good game most of the time. So maybe if Malik Monk is a free agent, they could go there again. Malik was a great guy, and he would be the kind of guard. At least if you can't get somebody else that's a bigger name, if you just replace D'Lo with a guy like Malik Monk, he's a more consistent scorer, and he can score in a variety of ways. That would be interesting, but we'll see what they do. Leave your comments, guys. Please always subscribe. And if you're on Twitch, obviously you can follow, which is where I really record this stuff. But please subscribe and give me your thoughts on who the Lakers' next coach should be. Do you agree with Darvin Ham being fired? What roster moves do you think are realistic for them to make with 3 first-round picks to deal starting draft night? And then who should they deal? Who should they not deal? Who's the untouchables? Is it just LeBron and AD? Is it even LeBron and AD? LeBron's obviously probably a free agent because he can opt out by I think June 30th. So he'll probably opt out either way because then he can kind of dictate the situation the way he wants it. And the Lakers are going to have to try to make that work because if LeBron were to leave, then you're in really big trouble. Because then, you could lose LeBron and D'Lo, and then you just have Austin, AD, Rui, Vando. Who's going to play point guard? Hood Schifino. I guess Gabe Vincent would still be there in that case. But, the Lakers are going to have to figure some stuff out here. And, they're probably going to have to kind of do what LeBron wants to keep him around because that's really the only chance they have at competing on a high level right now. Because if they could just supplement what they have now and get a coach that makes just a little bit better decisions with rotations and game management, they're going to be right there. If they had just had a little, if they had one more big guy and a little bit better decision making, they would have been 6 or 7 with the Nuggets at least, if not be able to push over the top because of the Nuggets' lack of depth. So, but we'll see. I'm sure the Nuggets will make some moves this offseason and try to improve their depth because they know their bench isn't very good. So, but when you're paying all these guys, Porter Jr., Gordon, Jokic, and Murray, you're going to have to make tough decisions on, bench guys to pick up, and they're trying to develop guys through the draft with Watson and Braun and all that. And the Lakers have a really good guy on the bench named Max Christie that they're not really playing, and that's another Darvin decision that was like, what the heck? See, this is what I'm saying. Like, the media is telling you that Darvin should have been fired. I'm sitting here going, I don't know how you can make a case that he shouldn't be fired, really. Like, you can make a case, oh, well, if they just continue on, maybe something will get better. Like, I don't think so. He's got guys like Max Christie that aren't even going to play. And then when Max Christie's contract comes up, he's going to go sign a contract offer with another team and leave because he wants to play. Like, and now we're risking our future from one of the only draft picks we've had recently that's hit because Hood-Schifino doesn't look like he doesn't look like he's going to hit. And so the Lakers need to make, they have a pick in this year's draft. It seems like the Pelicans are going to defer their choice between this year and next year because obviously they're going, well, the Lakers might have a good team next year still like they do right now. But after that, if LeBron retires, we're going to get a way better pick. So they're going to defer that pick further down the line. And, that means the Lakers will probably have number 17-ish again this year. But they need to probably deal that pick because getting another guy like Hood-Schifino is not really going to help you. And this draft coming up is not a very strong draft. It's not. There's like 5 good guys, and after that, it's like, yeah, maybe. If you have really good development, and it'll probably take years. So I would get rid of the pick if I were them. Use the allure of the pick for a team that needs a pick and try to go get a player. If I were them, I would be all over Brooklyn and be like, hey, what do we need to do to get Mikal Bridges? We've got 3 picks. We'll sign and trade you guys back, D'Lo. You love D'Lo. He loved playing there. He set records for you there, and stuff when he was there. Let's put him back in Brooklyn, put him in a good situation that he liked, and then, give you 3 picks. If we have to throw in some seconds, whatever. But if you're going to deplete your roster, it better be worth it. And Mikal Bridges would be the perfect third guy. And then if LeBron retires, he would be a really good guy to put with the rest of the roster that they have with AD. So maybe that would be a great way to go. But you have to get Mikal Bridges on board because there's probably teams that can offer a better deal than that to Brooklyn. So you probably have to get him to kind of go, hey, Brooklyn, I want to go to LA. So we'll see. These guys all have relationships, and in the Olympics this year in Paris, a lot of these guys are going to play together. I don't think Mikal's going to be there, but I'm sure there's a lot of guys that talk, and a lot of things can happen. So we'll see what happens, guys. Please, please, please like and subscribe on YouTube, especially. I really appreciate it. I've gone up so many subscriptions just over the last couple weeks here, and I greatly appreciate your time and energy. I try to diversify what I do, so it's not all Lakers on my channel or all this or all that. There's like 10 different categories on playlists, so I try to really diversify between all these different things that I do, including Angels Baseball Addicts and Lakers and everything else. So I just kind of put it in one place because it's easier to channel that way. So I apologize if there's videos on there that maybe aren't your favorite because it's a topic you don't like. But you can always just kind of subscribe to that particular playlist and get notifications on the videos that you do like and, do it that way. So I appreciate your time and energy. Please like, subscribe, leave comments about all this Laker stuff that we just talked about today, and let me know what y'all think and whatever content you want or don't want or adjustments to make everything better. Appreciate your time and energy, guys. Benny Bam. Until next time.